So today we are at Little River. Give you a look at Little River. And what we would like to do is to give you at home the opportunity to meet our creek.
Hey everybody, my name's Dana Davis. We're here at Little River. It's a beautiful creek. It's an important creek. And we want to talk to you today about the creek and some of the reasons why this creek is important. Number one, it's home to aquatic animals, fish, insects, other aquatic animals. It also provides shelter and habitat for birds, raccoons, foxes, and many other animals. Actually, as we walked down here, we probably didn't get it on video, but there was a beautiful pair of ducks here. And a couple weeks ago, it was likely the same ducks, but they were three mallards and one female. So clearly she chose a mate. Good for her. It also provides enjoyment for people. Over here is a play structure, and you saw it coming in. If you come up this way, there's a large walking track for people to just be outside and walk on. And so there's also something very important about this creek, because it's part of the water supply for Norman, Del City, and Midwest City. And Rebecca's going to talk more about that.
So there are lots of fun things that we could tell you about Little River, but one thing we want to talk about today is something that would be really obvious to you if you were here with us, and that is there is a lot of algae in this creek. Now, algae is a natural and important part of any stream ecosystem. It's sort of the bottom of the food chain. But the algae that we see here, you would call significant or even excessive. So why is there so much algae in this creek? Well, Little River receives the stormwater for a good portion of more. Stormwater is the rain that falls from the sky, runs across the ground into a storm drain, those metal grates that you see on the side of the road, and from the storm drain to the nearest creek. When that rain runs across the surface of the earth, it will pick up anything that's on top of the ground and carry it to the nearest water body. So it's spring. What are lots of people doing in their yards? They're applying fertilizer. Some of that fertilizer reaches Little River. The fertilizer in your yard makes your grass grow beautiful, thick, and green. It does the same thing to algae in the creek. So this creek is really special. This is our sampling site right here, because Little River is the main tributary to this water body, which is Lake Thunderbird. Lake Thunderbird is the drinking water supply for Norman, Del City, and Midwest City. When we get excessive algae in a water body, it causes several different issues. One issue is that algae are green plants, and just like trees, during the day they photosynthesize and release oxygen. So trees are releasing oxygen into the air, and algae is releasing oxygen into the water. And oxygen is good. We breathe oxygen out of the air. Fish breathe dissolved oxygen out of the water. But the problem happens at night when it's dark. During the day, green plants photosynthesize, and at night, they respire. And the process of respiration consumes oxygen. So for trees, the trees will pull oxygen out of the air. For algae at night, they're pulling oxygen out of the water. So what you see are these fluctuations that look like this. The oxygen is really high during the day when there's a lot of sunlight. It decreases as the sun goes down and usually hits a low sometime before sunrise. The fish do fine when the oxygen is up here. When the oxygen is very low, fish are stressed and can even die. So that's one issue that we see in water bodies that have too much algae. Another issue is that algae increases the difficulty of treating water to drinking water standards. So not only is it more difficult, it's also more expensive. And that cost is passed on to the consumer who buys the water. So you may be asking, what could you do to help Little River? Well, if you live in this watershed, There are several things you could do to help Little River. The first would be to reduce or even eliminate lawn chemicals. If you do choose to apply fertilizer to your yard, we would encourage you to go to your county extension office and get a soil test so you know exactly what you need to apply and how much. If we are able to reduce the amount of chemicals applied to the lawns in this watershed, we'll reduce the amount of fertilizer that reaches Little River. A second thing you could do is to let the grass in your yard grow just a little higher. Now, how would that help water quality? Well, typically, the biomass of a plant above ground is about equal to the biomass of the roots below ground. So if you have really short turf grass in your yard, you're going to have pretty shallow roots underneath the surface of the ground. The benefit of longer, deeper roots is that those roots provide little pathways for the water to infiltrate. And we want to maximize infiltration. The more water that infiltrates into the soil, the less water is running across cement surfaces, picking up pollutants. Another thing that you can do to keep rain on your property is to install rain barrels or even rain gardens. Rain barrels are great options during a drought for watering your garden, and rain gardens are just a beautiful addition to anyone's yard. A final thing that you could do to help Little River is to grow lots of different plants, especially native species. As we talked about with the biomass above and below ground, if you have diverse native species in your yard, there are going to be lots of little pathways under the soil for water to infiltrate. And of course, native species also support pollinators and other wildlife. So we just want to thank you for coming today with us to our creek, Little River.